From SBI's Executive Briefing Center in Dallas, Texas, the most watched and listened to content in B2B sales and marketing, it's the SBI Podcast with your host, Matt Shares.
Welcome to the SBI TV show, a weekly show dedicated to helping you make your number. Today we're going to discuss the ongoing issue of marketing and sales interlock. What a hot topic. How do you get these two pivotal growth functions to work together better? And how do you get them to work together so you can grow faster than the industry and the competition? I am your host, Matt Shares. I'm the CEO of SBI. And joining me in the studio today is somebody who's incredibly qualified to talk about this, who is Stephen Thomas. Stephen's the SVP of Sales for Armor Cloud Security. And I'm not going to try to describe what Armor Cloud does because Stephen's going to do it way better than I can. But Stephen, first off, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming by, and I know you and I know a bunch of the same people. So I think by way of introduction, maybe just tell us a little bit about you, your role, and then tell us a little bit about Armor Cloud and what you guys do.
Sure. So Stephen Thomas, SVP Global Sales.
Okay.
So been at Armor for a little over a year now.
Okay.
We are a hybrid cloud security as a service offering. So if you looked at the website, you see full stack security as a service, compete generally in the mid-market space.
Okay.
So we were talking about target customer size. Generally for us, that's 50 million upwards to 3 billion.
Okay, got it, very good. And if I was a head of sales or a CMO or a CEO watching this show and I was thinking about, and I hadn't heard of you, and I said, ooh, who do they compete with so I can sort of wrap my head around your competitive set?
Sure.
Who would be a couple of folks that you guys sort of battle it out with?
Yeah, you could think about three categories.
Yeah.
The managed detection and response world,
Yep.
so the Red Canaries of the world.
Okay.
On the bigger side, the SecureWorks of the world on the managed security service provider side.
Yep.
Then on the technology stack, sometimes we run into folks like AlertLogic, Alien Vault, folks of that nature.
All right, very good. Today, Stephen and I are going to unpack this whole concept of interlock. And those of you who don't own sales and marketing, but own a revenue number, this is going to be a great show for you. And if you're a CEO and you're saying, how do I get my two favorite children, sales and marketing, to play in the same sandbox, I think you're going to like this show. For those of you that are watching or listening out there, if you want to have access to our content and you have an iPhone, all you have to do is go to the Apple Store, download the SBI app by searching for Sales Benchmark Index, and then you can use the iPhone to give you notifications on your commute, when you're traveling, on your way to CrossFit to get yourself all fired up. So we're going to jump into the questions. So Stephen, let's talk about in this segment, I want to unpack touch points between sales and marketing. Hot topic.
Sure.
A lot of our work is pushed in and around optimizing the go-to-market engine. And you can't go to market if you don't have sales and marketing interlocked. So as a way to just start the conversation, how do you think about that? And maybe how has your opinion changed over the years, knowing, some of the places that you've worked?
A little bit over the years. So if you think about where we've come from 10 to 20 years ago, two very distinct functions between sales and marketing.
Yep.
Marketing was providing kind of core air coverage,
Yep.
sales out there on an account basis doing the work, and there was often what I would describe as a disconnect between the two from a vision and mission perspective, both in goal of the company.
Yeah.
That's transformed for me, and I think for a lot of companies today, to what is a very tight marriage being required between sales and marketing around mission and vision.
Yep.
And so if I think about how that manifests itself in my world today, that means I've got to drive in coordination with my CMO, Diana Massaro, on a daily basis. And that looks like, we're going to talk about account-based marketing today a little bit, but getting the teams operating on a daily basis together in the work they do and not operating in silos.
Yep. So let's talk about that. So how do you and Diana, I guess, work together to have a single view of the customer, have a single view of the output that you're both, because you can't be successful without her.
Sure.
She can't be successful without you. So let's talk about single view. Single view of the customer, single view of success, single view of go-to-market.
So I'd start out with booze. In the sense that we talk a lot both professionally and personally. So that interlock between the two individuals is critical. So if you're not doing that work, you're not doing yourself any favors with regards to your marketing peers. So I think that's an easy place to start. The second is aligning against your target market. So if you go through any go-to-market exercise, you're going to identify your core customer set. And so doing that work and then identifying the buyers and the buyer personas you're going to be pursuing and aligning against that vision, that's critical. We're lucky enough at Armor to have over 1,200 customers that actively buy from us. And so we were able to go out and do inspection amongst that customer group to understand who our real customers were. In some cases, DevOps, some cases CISO, et cetera. But that was the initial work to be done. And then the next piece of work that we're doing right now is how do we translate that to the teams and make sure that they understand and they're enabled on what those buyers look like, what they need to hear and want to hear, and all of the pieces around that.
So 1,200 customers, growing quickly, you and Diana are interlocked. What signifies the right handoff between marketing and sales? And almost think about like the dispositioning of a lead, right? And I use that term because a lot of people define it differently, and we won't go crazy on that right now, but how have you guys normalize that at Armor?
So maybe I'll give you two views because I know you've got a lot of your viewers and customers that are effectively inbound shops today or even account-based marketing shops today. But in that inbound world today, explicitly marketing is doing scoring against a core set of metrics, which is engagement with us, either through syndication or other vehicles. And once that scoring rubric meets a certain level, they're then passing that off to our BDR team. Now, I think most companies have a pretty critical decision to make these days around insource or outsource of the BDR organization. We've decided to insource. Our volume of leads and kind of the transformation that our business is undergoing right now is manifests itself in the sense we need that team.
Such but that it requires it.
Exactly. That handoff, though, between marketing and sales occurs right there. So once that MQL scores up, it then falls into the BDR team. They then go through their qualification process. Then it passed off to the sales team as a sales accepted lead and kind of a standard process that I think you and most of your teams understand.
Love it. Okay, very good. Last question in this segment. So we often find that folks are content and collateral starved these days. So marketing's trying to have enough content to deliver the right message at the right time. BDR says, okay, reached out, Steven picked up the telephone, but he's not ready yet. Still got to keep him warm, but it's in the ICP, and I know it. Sales is saying, I'm in a sales campaign, I've had a meeting, but it's not a hot opportunity, doesn't clear the hurdle. I need something to stay relevant. Everybody's got a relevancy need, and you're smiling because I know this is a challenge. So how do you and Diana think about content and multi-channel content?
So I'm smiling because you think about the cybersecurity landscape these days, and there's over 2,000 firms in the space today. So distinguishing the message is simply not easy these days. And so really, I would take you back to the buyer persona and really identifying who our true customers are and our target customers are. And then understanding and being able to have a regular conversation with them about what's the content that they're seeking. And we're lucky enough, and I would have invited you over to our studio to have our own small video studio where we produce content with our Chief Information Security Officer, our threat hunting teams. We hired... one of my favorite hires has been Rafael Los, who runs a widely distributed podcast and Down the Security Rabbit Hole. So again, it's taking the different vehicles of video, social, and then your standard case studies, white paper references, and finding the different vehicles by which your team can deliver that. And you've got to provide the tooling for your team to be able to deliver that, because asking a seller these days to simply go and approach LinkedIn and populate something, it's not going to happen. You've got to really help them on that journey to get there if they've not already gotten there. No doubt.
So what you should take from this segment, and if you think about being on the bleeding edge, video and the production of video and the way people consume it, and many of you right now are watching, and we're on video, and this is long form, but it will be redistributed in various different mechanisms, is you've got to understand which buyers pay attention to which modes of content, and then to Steven's point, you've also got to enable the sales team. Typical sales people are not great at writing, they're not great at sort of coming up with the message. They're great at running the plan, give me my patch, tell me how I get paid, tell me the message, and I'll go. And a lot of folks are missing that connectivity, but still getting frustrated that the sales team doesn't feel like they're as productive. So I think that was well said by you.
Can I tie in one last thing there,
Please.
and that is the personalization of the content.
No doubt.
And not overcomplicating that.
Yep.
Deliver the core.
Yep.
Let your sellers personalize in small tidbits.
Yep.
Don't overcomplicate for your seller.
Yep. Well done. All right. So in the spirit of contextual content, and what Stephen just gave a lead into, what we're going to now jump into is account-based marketing, otherwise known as ABM. And if you think about ABM, been around for a while, but still, if you think about the historical element of B2B, this is still relatively new. And it's a challenge that many folks have because they think they're doing ABM, and they're not. Or they've tried it, but they haven't gone all the way, so they got half pregnant. And as we all know, it's impossible to get half pregnant. So you haven't really done it well. So Stephen and I are going to unpack that now and this whole concept around alignment. So I guess, Stephen, start card-carrying sales leader, grew up in some great sales environments, right? And how did you first greet ABM, and what was your perception, and then how has that changed over time?
So as someone who's come from an environment where you're responsible for so much in delivering on an account basis. So I'm selling to X account. I have to engage these 6 different people. Right. And you don't feel the effect of marketing. I couldn't have been more excited than deploying account-based marketing inside of our environment, in part because as a sales organization, we get a very definitive sense of the spend and the targeting that we're going through as an exercise with our marketing peers. So I know that my field marketers are coming in and deploying assets and capabilities against a specific set of accounts that we've targeted and agreed that this is where we can win, this is where we're going to win at the highest rate, and this is where, candidly, as a seller, I'm going to make the most money.
Yeah. So is there ideas or insights that you would share with the viewers on how to get the sellers to cooperate with the marketers? So I work at Armor. I'm a card-carrying salesperson. I've got my patch. I live in California. I'm right out of central casting. How do I exist with marketing? What's my cadence? What's my motion? Talk to us about that.
So I think there are a couple of pieces, and we actually like to compare it to the Security Operations Center and how the Security Operations Center works with the SIM and some of the other technologies there. There's a set of tooling that we have on the front end that we've invested in as Armor for our sellers, and that looks like tools like a cadence tool, like a SalesLoft, Salesforce for metrics and enablement, and a number of other different tools from a marketing perspective. And so it's education for the seller around the value and the investments that I've made on their behalf. That secondary piece is really that work to be done. So it's understanding when a account has scored up and they look correct, that I know how and when to engage and what are the different types of engagement vehicles that I might have. Is that a enhanced direct mail piece where I'm going to drop Matt a great Yeti cup for participating in some activity? Is that we're going to a Cubs game with a partner on Thursday in Chicago, would you like to join us? And then delivering that hyper-specific content based upon the vertical and the person I'm engaging with. So that work to be done in the middle where you build connectivity. And so for us, that was a resource allocation alignment perspective. So we had folks that were doing other work in marketing, social, and some others that we moved into alignment directly with each of our field selling teams.
Got it.
So that was a key piece for us. And then is the secondary, when we think about the alignment, the exercise is that outcome piece, or the third piece, if you will. So for us, it's demonstrating to the seller the outcome that they're going to experience, and that looks like a commission payment. And so again, taking that tools, core work to be done with marketing on a day-to-day basis, and then painting the outcome for them that has gotten our sellers to get very excited about account-based marketing and sales.
Okay, so I love that. That was very clear and easy to follow. So then, do you and Diane struggle, or is there any sort of back and forth on credit, attribution, like who did what, and this was me, and this? Because if I'm watching this show right now as a sales leader, I'm like, Yeah, my marketing leader runs around talking about how much pipe they've generated and all these MQLs and SQLs. And the marketing leader's watching this show going, I do all this work for the sales leader and they can't convert anything. And the tension continues. And it sounds like you guys don't have that.
We're lucky that we don't. And again, I think that goes back to communication and trust being foundational for our relationship. At the same point in time, for those of you that are still operating on an inbound lead perspective, that's really the environment you're going to operate in, which is we build our demand funnel. Here's our top of funnel. It has to transition to, middle funnel operating, and then we're going to take it through to close. But your marketing peers are really just focused on that top of funnel in an inbound world. Yep. And that transformation to account-based marketing allows us to be much more direct in the alignment, because no longer is Diana aligned to lead generation or number of MQLs. Yep. She's driving straight to revenue. So it's that transformation from marketing from lead to revenue that really is for us been just a fantastic alignment exercise, not only for us, but for the teams as well.
Great. And then do you and Diana have when it comes to like your plans, I mean, is there enough of an interlock between the two of you relative to the variable component where like you're truly in the boat together? And
yeah. No, I mean,
credit to your CEO of having that vision to say, hey, like it's going to go all the way through to compensation, because that signals to you guys what matters.
Well, and I think that goes across the teams too. And you've talked a lot about different teams that are impacted by sales, customer experience, and others, that if you're not finding a way to tie in some level of revenue performance to those teams' compensation, I think you're missing an opportunity to drive the right behavior.
All right. So in this final segment, Stephen and I are going to unpack the concept that I think is one of the most frustrating ones, which is the annual planning process. And figuring out what next year is going to look like, even figuring out what the next half year is going to look like, depending on the planning cadence. So just to set the scene, one of the things that we see the most is the siloed execution of putting the plan together. I have intel, I'm the marketer, I think the market's this big and I'm doing this. You run sales, you have your intel, you have your market listing, you have your facts, information. Sales ops works for you, marketing ops works for me. We both go to the CEO and the CFO. You ask for more headcount, I ask for more money, and so it goes. So I've now set the scene and everybody's going, oh yeah, that sounds about right. So now I'm going to ask Stephen, as our resident expert, what are the inputs that you guys use in this very tightly wound interlock, and what can you share with the audience that maybe they can take away?
Let me be an advocate for a second for ABM here and account-based selling. So we know the 1,760 accounts that we're going to invest in. We're very specific about that work to be done. Yeah. And so with that interlock, we drive the rest of the behavior, which is converting accounts into the BDR team. How am I measuring the seller who's supposed to be doing the work against their account? Yep. How is the field marketing team helping either add contacts into that account or help score up some of those contacts where we know that we've got to reach out and connect in? So that transition for us has really aligned our overall planning exercise. And then finally, I would go back, if you're not aligned and having the conversation about revenue and you don't know how you're going to get there together, you're just not going to win. Okay.
So, I mean, the precision with which you answered that question, and I know this to be true based on the time we spent beforehand, I don't know how many of your peers would be able to answer that. But if I sort of think about ballparking, and I don't know how many heads you have, if I'm a head of sales watching this, first thing I say is I go, okay, if I got 200 reps, what's my universe that they need? And if for every 10 opportunities they're going to win one deal, like it's fairly simple to do a little bit of math on the back of a napkin and come up with what a universe is. I think, Stephen, where people sometimes miss is they don't take the segmentation down to the level to say, okay, I got propensity to buy, I got potential. I got to have those two, but I also have acquisition costs and lifetime value. If I clear those four components, I can zero in on who I should be going after. My prospect universe goes from here to there, and then I get surgical. So my question is this. How long did it take you to get to a level of clarity and precision on your 1760?
So the 1760 is pretty consistently moving. So meaning people come in and come out.
Yep.
But it took us a solid 6 months.
Yeah.
And working with partners again, you've got to be thoughtful about the spend around account-based marketing, because there are a lot of tools out there that you can acquire today. But that took us a solid 6 months through our persona exercise, through our target market exercise, and again, product got very involved there to align to that 1760. Now, the other piece to that 1760 is we haven't shut off we have a very healthy inbound lead flow today.
Yep.
So we want to continue to operate that, and we'll continue to route those through our SDRs or BDRs and have those come into the sales engine.
Yep.
That's still going to happen. So if you're concerned that 1760 is too few, I think you're looking at the efficiency of spend.
Yeah.
And particularly for your sellers, this is an important piece where you're reminding them that you're delivering the most efficient and effective targeted accounts for them to go work against.
No doubt.
And that's going to result in what?
Yeah.
Right? Higher dollars in their pocket.
I'm going to blow my number out. Higher
Exactly.
ASP, better win rate, shorter sales cycle.
Exactly. And if you talk about the reasons foundationally why we moved to an ABM approach, was exactly that. We had an ASP that was not where it needed to be for us from an investment perspective. So moving that higher was critical for us. And then at the same point in time, and we talked about this kind of pre-show, was a little bit of the transition that we're making in the security as a service world in acquiring larger customers. And those two things demand target and focus.
Yep. Love it. Well, and I think, Stephen, the thing that I've learned in this role, and just in doing this for the greater part of a decade, is the bets that companies make, the fewer bets with greater precision, are better than way more. And I literally live by the rule of 3, maybe a 4th, but there's only so much mental storage to say that's important. Ooh, that's important. Ooh, that's important. And I've made this mistake, so my team will probably be watching this show going, oh yeah, right? So I can recognize that, but also see that in our client base. So last question. Biggest obstacle you think that folks face in producing a well-oiled, interlocked annual plan?
I think, again, the biggest obstacle is that revenue alignment. So if you're not operating, if you've got your marketing team operating off of that MQL basis, and not to repeat something I've already stated, but if you're operating there and then coming back to a revenue number that you as sales are being driven to by a CEO and executive staff, you're going to have misalignment. Yeah. Again, it's difficult to get there. That's probably the biggest challenge that we've seen or experienced prior.
Very good. All right. Well, Stephen, I could keep you here for a few more hours, but I have to be judicious with time because I know you have things to do. But man, I appreciate you stopping by. Great insight and very tangible that people can take away. So thanks.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah. So, and to the audience, always appreciate you taking the time to tune in with your eyes and your ears. You have a choice on where you put them, and the fact that you spent some time with us means a lot to me and my team. So as always, until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on the studio, SBI's Executive Briefing Center, our team, or to schedule a workshop, please visit salesbenchmarkindex.com.